Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. This must be review number 10 or so that I'm doing from these guys, and I've always enjoyed the different beers that I've had from them. These guys are not scared to try different styles, and that's one of the main reasons why I keep an eye on what these guys are releasing, and they always put out really solid examples of these different styles as well. So yeah, the one we're going to have a look at today is a little bit of a special beer for a special occasion, and it's also a sub-style that we haven't had from them before. So curious to see how it turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So for this one then, we are going to head to Eskilstuna, out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. So this particular beer is called 14, or 14 I guess we should say. Not sure exactly how to name this one, but yeah, this one is their 14th anniversary beer. It comes in at 14.2% ABV, and it is an American style barley wine. So yeah, quite curious about this, I have to say. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was the Eskilstuna Black IPA, which I thought was really nicely done, and I've had two before this one. I've had two anniversary beers from these guys before. So the first one was the 12, which was a Scotch ale, and then the one last year, the 13, that was I think it came across more like a Doppelbock from what I remember, but I think it was supposed to be like a highly, a heavy Weizenbock, if I remember rightly. But it was a nice beer. Anyway, it was definitely a nice beer. But yeah, I think first time we're having an American style barley wine from these guys, but knowing this brewery, I think we could be in for a very solid example of the sub-style, if you like. So yeah, curious to see how this one turns out. This beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021. And as I say, I keep an eye on what these guys are releasing, because you can always get some really interesting stuff. I've had black IPAs, lagers, red ales. What have I had? I think I've had a couple. I don't know if I've had some stouts and things from these guys as well, actually. But yeah, I've had quadruples, triples, all of these kind of things. Scotch ales. I keep an eye on the different stuff that these guys are doing, but I think I need to have a look at like a New England and a West Coast IPA from these guys. I think that's something that I've still to come across from them, but we'll see about getting that done at some point in the future. But yeah, nice to return to these guys again, and a happy 14th anniversary to them. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Eskilstuna Ölkultur before, and no doubt you will see more added to that list in the future, because they're always releasing different stuff. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Eskilstuna Ölkultur. So Eskilstuna Ölkultur was founded by the homebrewers Arto Ukkara, Kauko Lakanen, Thomas Humbla, Bosse Gustafsson and Anders Olsson. I think I've actually spoken to Anders a few times through Messenger and things like that, and he, if it was him, he invited me to go up to the brewery and like film an interview and stuff with him. So at some stage, hopefully you will see Eskilstuna Ölkultur on the Meet the Brewery segments. But anyway, these guys met at the Swedish Homebrewing Championships, and they wanted to give Eskilstuna a brewery once again. So together they managed to rent a building in the town centre, and they established a beer bar which opened at Christmas back in 2003. But once the bar began to do really well, they thought they should start brewing the beer for themselves, and so in 2006 they officially founded Eskilstuna Ölkultur as a brewery. So in 2008 they moved to a larger premises because they outgrew their original brewery and bar, and they were apparently helped by an army of volunteers to get this new premises up and running. But they received their brewing equipment from China in September of 2008, and they've continued to expand their brewing capacity and range ever since. In 2018, they apparently brewed around 130,000 litres of beer, and for a long time it was Anders Olsson who was the main brewer, but they now have somebody new in there as well. And Arto Ukkara is also involved in the business side of things. I think the other founders are not so active in the company anymore. But as of February 2020, 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 170 different kinds of beer, and like I said to you, they're always putting different styles out there. And yeah, I mean, I think the best way to think of this brewery is it's basically like a brew pub that bottles a portion of their beer. I think that's probably a fair way to think about them. Yeah, they tend to release maybe a beer every 1 or 2 months through Systembolaget. I didn't see anything for March, actually, come to think of it, but yeah, they're always releasing different things to try. But yeah, always a wide variety of styles available from these guys. That's why I enjoy having a look at their beers, and as I said, they do really solid examples of things. I've had you know, the Trip Ale, the Quadruple Ale, the Scotch Ale and stuff. I've been impressed with all of these different with all of the different beers that I've had from them so far. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Eskilstuna Ölkultur just now. As I say, hopefully we can get up and visit the brewery. I'd love to have a look at their brew pub and film, you know, a little bit of an out and about video, some tastings on site and stuff like that at some stage. But yeah, I think that will be pretty cool, actually. So yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's have a look at this one then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see at the top, the little camera screen is reflecting off the bottle there, but there you can see the Eskilstuna Ölkultur symbol there, and this actually is the brew pub here. This is actually the brew pub, but you can see plain gold bottle cap on this one, and it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. So it says Eskilstuna Ölkultur firar 14 år som bryggeri och som vanligt uppmärksamma vidare med en unik öl. So yeah, Eskilstuna Ölkultur was established 14 years ago as a brewery, and as usual, we kind of celebrate this with a unique beer. Ölet i din hand är en amerikansk barleywine som krävde 2 mäskar för att fylla var tjockare och uppnå rätt styrka. So the beer that you have in your hand is an American barley wine, which required two mashes to fill our I guess their cooker, basically, it's saying, but yeah, basically to fill the word's gone out of my head, to basically fill their boiler, if you like, but and also to give the beer the right strength. Vi har även låtit den vila på Bordeaux-fat ett par månader så att smaken förhöjs och mjuknar. So we have even allowed this beer to rest, to age basically on Bordeaux barrels for a few months, so that the taste heightens and also softens. Eskilstuna 14 kan med fördel lagras flera år. So yeah, Eskilstuna 14 can be allowed to, it can be advantageous, I guess you like. It comes with advantages if it's aged for a few years. So yeah, I just wanted to try this one, so I could have aged it for a few years. It seems a shame not to kind of review this and celebrate the 14th anniversary when it's going on. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about Eskilstuna as well on the bottom there, but we've already kind of been through that in the history section of the video. But yeah, they also say down here, vi brygger öl med kropp och själ. So yeah, we brew beer with body and soul. But yeah, 330 milliliter bottle, this one. I actually couldn't tell you what I paid for this. I think with it being 14%, it probably was about 40 or 45 Swedish kroner. But then when I saw what it was, you know, it's a brewery that I like, it's a style that I quite enjoy. I just kind of thought, you know, bugger it, why not? But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So yeah, I think about 45 Swedish kroners, £4 sterling, €4.50, and maybe somewhere in the region of $5 American. But yeah, 14.2% American style barley wine, this one. We'll get it out and into the glass. So for those of you that aren't aware, the main difference, I would say, from a flavour profile perspective, would be between the American and the English barley wines. The English ones for me always come across as a bit more kind of toasted and things in their brown sugars. The fruits are a little bit more sort of phenolic and cough syrupy like, whereas the American ones are big and oily in the malt bases, and you know, the fruits tend to be kind of more juicy and oily as well. That's another thing about these kind of beers. But yeah, as you can see, when we've poured this one out, I'd say that it poured with about a third finger of a frothy. I would describe that as a sort of fawny coloured head, come to think of it. Yeah, it's got a nice kind of fawn sort of coloured head there, but that's just kind of faded away to be a fairly thin foamy layer, and it's just leaving a bit of a ring around the edge of the glass. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can see it there. There we go. But yeah, interesting looking beer, I have to say. But yeah, you know, usually high alcohol beers don't retain their heads so well unless it's like a big wheat imperial stout or something. Wheat is good at helping beers maintain the head. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, if we shine the light through this, it's actually a very deep kind of copper colour. Very, very deep sort of copper colour. And I'm curious about this because when it comes, you know, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few things. It's dependent on, one, the type of malts that you use, and then two, the length of your wort boil, and of course you can change it with adjuncts. So adjuncts would be the third variable, but the second variable is dependent on the first. And this one's definitely one of the lighter kind of barley wines that I've come across. So, you know, obviously the longer you boil your wort, the more the sugar caramelizes, thus you get a darker beer out of it. So I'm just wondering, either this is quite a straightforward malt base, you know, it could be, you know, just one or two different kinds of malt, or it's undergone quite a short boil. So yeah, I have seen, you know, I had barley wines recently from Dugas Brewery, I think, that had like, I think it was like only Pilsner malt or something that was in those, if I remember rightly. So yeah, you can get barley wines that use just one or two types of malts actually, and that might be the explanation for this one, because this is definitely a barley wine that's lighter in colour than a number of the other ones that I've had. Either that, or it's had a slightly shorter boil, if you like, because if it's double mashed, if it is double mashed, I mean, I would have thought they might have done a longer boil time, but yeah, I don't know. Interesting point. I'm sure regardless it'll taste nice. It's just always nice to think about these little things. But yeah, this is a nice copper colour, and as I say, it's definitely lighter than a number of the other barley wines that I've come across before, but it's actually quite similar in colour to the two that I reviewed from Dugas recently that they did in collaboration with 5 Points in London. But as you can see, if we put your fingers behind the glass there, this beer does have a nice transparency to it, which I think works well. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and I mean, overall it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. I really like how this one goes together, and I'm curious to see how it turns out in the flavour and the aroma. So yeah, nothing overly surprised about the appearance, but definitely a nice kind of light copper colour compared to some of the other more, you know, some of them can be really chestnutty and mahogany like in colour. So curious to see how that turns out in the flavour. But yeah, aroma time. Oh, that does smell nice. Straight away with this one, you can smell that barrel aging note in this. You get a lovely woody note coming out of this one. Bordeaux, if I remember rightly, is cognac, and cognac barrel aging is, you know, very, very interesting. I don't even know, cognac, it's like a, if I remember rightly, cognac is like a wine distillate, and this one smells as if it's like a white, you know, a white grape cognac. I don't know, you know, as I say, I'm not a wine connoisseur. I don't know that much about cognac. I think my friend Remy over at Beer Geek Holland, he knows a lot about cognac, so I'll need to get him to educate me a little bit on that. But you can smell with this one, you get that nice woody note there, and you can smell the sort of white, green, grapey infusion into the wood side of things, if that makes sense. So the barrel aging side of this comes across really, really nicely. Yeah, it's lovely. It almost smells like sultanas. Like the baseline of this beer is like wood and sultanas. I think that's what I would say. So yeah, just to be clear, for me, I always term raisins, you know, the dried dark grapes. For me, that's raisins. For me, the sultanas are the white and green grapes that are dried. So yeah, just a little technical English thing there, because I've had people comment on that before, so just so you're aware. But yeah, the malty base in this one is quite nice, and what I will say is it does actually smell as if there's only, you know, maybe 1, 2 or 3 kind of malts in this beer. The brown sugary side of this beer is very, very nice. So you can smell, it's got a wee bit of a sweet caramelly note to it, but it comes across as like quite a dry and almost slightly toasted, biscuity sort of thing. So I really appreciate how all of that goes together. Actually, I really like how this whole thing goes together. It's a lovely, lovely smelling beer actually. the malty side of this is just, it is lovely. I mean, in some ways it's quite straight shooting because you've got the barrel aging, you've got the nice woody characters in there. There's one or two wee nutty elements coming out of it. You can smell those sort of dried sultana notes in there that I'm talking about. Some sweet caramel, a little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuit note, and you know, it's almost got a little bit of that sort of caramel wafery sort of thing coming out of it as well. But other than that, you know, I don't think there's too much to talk about on the malty side of the aroma, so that's quite interesting with this one. That is quite interesting. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, you can still get a little touch of earthiness out of this one. You get some nice floral notes there, but it's quite a soft floral note. It's almost like German and noble-like in a way, but I would highly doubt that they would use German hops in an American barley wine. I'm not sure what they would use in here. Maybe would they use a little bit of Simcoe? Simcoe can be quite interesting in barley wines. You know, Williamette is another interesting one. You know, even just some breweries use a little bit of Chinook and a little bit of Cascade and things like that. So yeah, interesting to think about this. But yeah, nice kind of, you do get a bit of, you can smell a bit of the deeper floral aromatic notes as well. So that to me would indicate it's an American hop, or, you know, Australian, New Zealand maybe. You know, could Nelson Sauvin have been used in this? I've had one or two barley wines before where there's Nelson Sauvin, and this, it reminds me of that a little bit. Could it be something like Nelson Sauvin, or, you know, Hallertau Blanc could be the other one they could use here. Enigma from Australia would be interesting in a barley wine, come to think of it, you know. But yeah, you get a nice little bit of grassiness out of this. If you age this beer, of course, the hoppy character will drop out of it. That's a kind of inherent characteristic of beer. But yeah, the green component for me in this one is not too prominent, just nice and smooth and soft. But yeah, you've got a really nice fruity component to this beer as well. So like I say, you can get some of the fruity notes out of the barrel aging part of this beer. But otherwise, the fruity notes for me, it is all about the sultanas. I mean, there's maybe a wee touch of like pear or something in there. It's sultanas. It's there's maybe a wee bit of date or something in this. And you get some kind of juicy figgy notes there as well. Maybe there's a wee bit of blackcurrant, but I don't get like such, you know, a rich blackberry sort of thing. So yeah, figs, sultanas, maybe a bit of a datey sort of thing, and a little touch of pear, something like that. Gooseberry as well, definitely a wee bit of gooseberry to this beer. So yeah, I have to say this is quite an interesting one. This isn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting, you know, a big, you know, juicy red fruity sort of barley wine with this one. I'm not sure if I was to smell this blind, I'm not sure that I would pick up that it was an American barley wine. I think I might be confused, as if it was a blind smell, and I'd be quite confused as to what this is exactly. I might have guessed like it was an old ale or something like that. But in fairness, maybe, you know, maybe this is a side of the barley wine that I've not really come across before, because I remember, you know, I was commenting the same things about the ones from Dugas Brewery before as well. So yeah, I'm curious to see what this one has in store for us actually. Hopefully this is an interesting beer. But yeah, it certainly struck me as interesting from the aroma anyway. But yeah, let's taste this then. This one is the 14 Fjorton 14th Anniversary Ale, American style barley wine, 14.2% ABV from Eskilstuna Ölkultur in Eskilstuna, out to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. I'm going to say straight away, this is a nice beer. You can feel the booziness off this, definitely. You know, I think this is the strongest beer that I've had from. I think this is the strongest beer I've had from Eskilstuna Ölkultur so far. You know, I'm trying to remember if the Weizen. I don't think the Weizenbock from last year was 13%, but I think the Scotch Ale was 12%. So I'm wondering, you know, what are they going to do when it's the 15th anniversary and beyond? You know, that's going to be a wee bit mental. They're maybe going to have to stick to imperial stouts after that. But yeah, it's this one. Geez, you do get a wee boozy kick out of this for sure. But it's a lovely beer. It's a lovely, lovely beer. Yeah, first impression of it is, you know, it's a really lovely kind of slick kind of beer, this one. it is interesting because, you know, I'm sort, you know, it's, you know, you can tell it's almost in a way for me, just the first impression of the flavour profile is I'm a little torn between whether it's a, you know, if I, again, as I said, if I was blind tasting this, I don't know if I would pick up that this was an American barley wine. I would maybe think, I don't know, I might think that this was a bit of an old ale or something like that, or an English barley wine. I think I would be more inclined to kind of say it like that. And I mean, we can debate about styles and stuff all day, but you know, the main question is it a good beer? And absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, the thing that makes me say that, just so you've got a basis for argument here, I would say, you know, the American barley wines are usually big and oily in their you know, they're really really big and sort of sweet, if you like, and that's one of the things. But again, as I say, potentially I need to try some more American barley wines. But there's I think there's a hint of English in this one. I think that's what it is. You know, I get just a hint of a, you know, the kind of more biscuity side of things out of this one. You do get that this. I think this barley wine is a bit more biscuity, so it makes me think, you know, there is a bit of an English character to this one. That's probably my basis for saying that, to be honest with you. It does have the big oily sugars that you expect of the American ones, but it's got a bit more of the biscuity note that you would expect of the kind of English one. And I suppose it's not so toasted either, which is the other thing. So yeah, I think there's a bit of English character to this one, but it does have some of the characteristics of the American one too. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, all these different substyles. But again, it doesn't matter. The main question should be, is this a good beer? And it is, definitely. This is a sipper for sure. It is absolutely a sipper, this one. But yeah, I have to say as well with it, when you smell the aroma of it, this beer, it really comes across in the flavour, kind of how you'd expect on the basis of the aroma. But yeah, going to say to them, thumbs up for this. The aftertaste that comes out of this beer is lovely, actually. So yeah, let's think about this then. So straight away across the middle of your palate, there's a lovely kind of smooth, just woody character. You get that lovely smooth oaky woody character just blanketing the middle of your tongue. And yeah, on top of that, you know, you get this, you can really feel it's like a sort of slickness there. You can feel it's almost like Werther's Original, like there's just a wee bit of that, you know, butter candy type thing sitting on top of the wood. But you can feel as you go further into the aftertaste, the woody character just dries out a little bit, and this is when you start to get these sultana kind of notes out of it. You do get a little bit of that. If you move further forward onto the front half of that middle third of your tongue, there's maybe a teeny little bit of a sort of vanilla character in there, one or two little nutty undertones as well, and that is the backbone of this beer. You know, it's like a dry, the woody side of this beer, pardon me, really comes across with a really dried fruit character, but it's really nice and infused. And as I say, the fruity character you get out of this one is a sort of green, white, grapey sort of thing. So the barley's backbone of this beer, pardon me, is very, very nicely done. I'd be curious to know how much of this beer they actually brewed, like how many thousand litres or whatever. So yeah, because I don't know how much space and things they've got for their brewing, but you know, I think this is that's what I think this brewery deserve credit for, is they always try random things like this, and it works. It really does work. I mean, I think their beers are always you know, really authentic as well. I mean, I think oddly enough, it was with another one of the anniversary beers, the Weizenbock, I thought was a bit more kind of Doppelbock like than it was Weizenbock like. And like I say, this beer has an element of kind of old ale and English barley wine sort of character to it. But you know, regardless of that, these are the only kind of beers where I would maybe argue about, you know, the authenticity to the style, because there's elements of other things in there. But you know, the main point is that their beers are really damn solid, and they're showing here that they know what they're doing with barrel aging as well. So that's pretty damn good. Yeah, this is definitely worth a try. This is absolutely worth a try if you find it. I would say go for it. And if you find yourself in Eskilstuna, then go and visit the restaurant. I think it's definitely worth doing that. I really hope I can get up there at some stage. Yeah, it's a lovely it's just lovely how this goes together actually. It's a beer, it really grows on you, I think, the more that you drink of it. It's a sipper, it's absolutely a sipper. It's like, you know, drinking a glass of brandy or something like this. Yeah, it's really nicely done. So I'm just going to say thumbs up to them for this. But if you go to the centre of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary note there, and it's quite a dense, it's a really dense sort of thing. I hesitate to describe it as treacle or molasses or whatever, because normally I would consider treacle and molasses to be considerably darker than what's going on here. But yeah, as you move further out from the centre of your palate, on top of these woody notes and the sort of fruity infusion that it has, you do get a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. But yeah, if you go to that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, there is a little bit more of a kind of dryness in there. Very slight kind of toasty, grainy dryness in there, but then on the back third of your palate, you do have a little bit more of a kind of grainy element coming out of this beer. But the malt base actually, I find, is really quite straight shooting. I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, this beer only has, you know, 1, 2, 3 kinds of malt in. If it's maybe like a bit of Pilsner malt or, you know, something like that. Pilsner malt apparently among the European breweries is quite popular for brewing these kind of barley wines, which I didn't realise. I didn't realise that that was quite a popular thing to do. That was until Dugas did it. So yeah, that's interesting. I think this beer is, as you say, it's just it's 1 or 2 types of malts in this, and so maybe, you know, when you look at the colour of this one, this sort of colour that you get, this kind of darker copper, this I think does, you know, indicate a slightly longer boil, if you like. Like a barley wine would normally be 4 or 5 hours in the boil, I would think, potentially even longer than that. So that could be the thing, is maybe the colour of this beer, maybe it's a one or 2 malt base that's in here, and then it's been boiled for quite a long time, and that gives you this kind of coppery colour. So that's something that I didn't quite make clear earlier on. But on reflection, I think it's really nice. It's very straight shooting in terms of its malt base, and the sort of you know, the barrel aging side of this beer just gives it that bit more depth, if you like. So yeah, this is definitely a beer that gives you a lot of food for thought. Absolutely. And when you take it in, there's a lot of kind of brown sugary sweetness that comes out of this one, and then it just gradually becomes a little bit more sort of biscuity and smooth on top of that as well. So yeah, I do like that about this. The barrel aging side of this beer and the simple malt base really work well together in this. So again, thumbs up to Eskilstuna for this. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, there's definitely a little touch of earthiness there, but it's not like a pungent earthiness or anything like that. It is quite soft. As you move further forward, there's a wee bit of herbal quality. Then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a nice little bit of a kind of big floral aromatic note to the beer as well. So I really like how this whole thing goes together. But yeah, it's around the front curve of the palate, it's definitely a little bit sort of lighter and grassy as well. You can feel there is a wee touch of zestiness to the grassy side of the beer as well, but obviously that's going to drop out a little bit the more you age this beer. Absolutely, that's going to drop out, because, you know, I'm drinking this one fairly fresh, whereas I could have aged it for a little while. And if I did that, you know, probably the fruits would come out a little bit more, the malt base would kind of smoothen out a bit. You might get a wee touch of an almost bready like note out of it as well, in my experience. But as a fresh barley wine, I think it comes across really, really nicely. But yeah, let's focus on the fruity side of things then. So as I always say, on that front third of your palate, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So for me, if you go to that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, again there's a wee bit of a sort of grainy bread crusty sort of thing going on there. The base of the front third of your tongue is more of a you do get again a nice little bit of the woody kind of side of the beer coming out there, and then all the fruity kind of character sits on top of that. It is, you know, again from the aroma, it is kind of what you'd expect in that sense. So yeah, when you take the beer in, it's got a really nice, just oily, fruity character. And if you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a slightly more kind of concentrated citrus. You get a wee bit of an appley note to it and a bit of a peary kind of quality. But as you move further forward, I think there's a wee touch of a kind of datey sort of thing comes out of this one. It's got a wee bit, I want to say, there's a lot of sultanas come out there as you go further forward as well, and then as you reach the front part of the palate, you get a few gooseberry notes out of the beer. Then there is just a wee touch of zestiness right on the tip of the tongue with this one. So the fruits that come across in this are really nice. Yeah, pears, sultanas, dates, you know, these kind of things. Actually, gooseberries. I think it's a really solid beer from that perspective. So yeah, I think it goes together really nicely in a sense. So yeah, it's a really interesting beer, this one. It's definitely made me think a lot, and that's again one of the reasons why I like trying these different things from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years. Doppelbocks, Scotch ales, quadrupels, tripels. I think I had a lager from them fairly recently as well, the black IPA. You know, there's some really good stuff from these guys. Did I have a Schwarzbier from them at some stage? Yeah, it's interesting that. I can't remember if I've had an Imperial Stout from them, come to think of it, so maybe that's another style that I need to try as well. But yeah, like I say, I keep an eye on what these guys are doing, because you will get things like this that just make you think a little bit. So thumbs up to them once again. This is a nice beer to celebrate their 14th anniversary with, absolutely. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, and this is a longer review of course, so this one I would say... yeah, so it's quite a full-bodied beer, this one. I would say sort of bottom end of full body. It's definitely not the thickest thing that you're going to come across. And of course, when you barrel age these beers, a bit of the mouthfeel drops away, and that's a kind of sacrifice you make for these more infused flavours. So yeah, bottom end of full bodied for me. Carbonation is very smooth, you know, almost non-existent. But yeah, really nice, big, oily and slightly slick mouthfeel to this one. In terms of IBUs, I think this beer still does have a bit of IBU, maybe like 40 or something like this. It's not going to blow the head off you, but obviously if you age this beer, that's going to drop out a little bit. And the fruits are lovely and oily, and sort of, you know, dried fruit, oily kind of characters. And the malt base for me is quite straight shooting, but again, it's quite smooth, and underneath that you get a little bit of dryness out of these, you know, the barrel aging woody characteristics in this beer. But yeah, this is a lovely beer. And I've certainly enjoyed kind of sitting here giving my thoughts on it. It feels like a little bit like, you know, I've just kind of unloaded when it comes to this beer, because there's a lot of food for thought in this one, and there's a lot of interesting things going on with it. But again, this is why I like trying beers from lots of different places. So yeah, this is maybe showing me another side of the barley wine that you know, I thought with Dugis might have been a sort of one-off, like a kind of unique thing, but maybe this sort of, you know, single malt, singular to, you know, non-complex malt bases in these beers are, you know, a lot of these beers are, you know, maybe this is another direction that you can take barley wines in, so I need to think about this definitely. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review then. Once again, a big happy anniversary to Eskilstuna Ölkultur. Thank you again to you guys for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Eskilstuna Ölkultur. Hopefully, as I say, we can do an out and about video at their place at some stage. You can look forward to that sometime, I'm sure. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Check out my social media. Check out Eskilstuna Ölkultur, and I'll catch you guys in the next review. This one was the 14 Fjorton 14.2% barley wine from Eskilstuna Ölkultur in Eskilstuna, out to the west of Stockholm. Slange, skull, cheers, and catch you guys in the next review.